Good morning and thank you very much for the invitation. My paper is entitled The Argentine Pavilion of 1889, Temporalities of an Epistemic Object. Keywords: transition, future studies, architecture, heritage. My name is Daniela Di Vella from Argentina. I am an architect with a specialization in design and master's degree in design management. I work at the Universidad de Palermo within the Design Research Institute. I am professor in the postgraduate design program, and I direct the research line Design in Perspective on Transition Design developed within the academic agree between Universidad de Palermo and Carnegie Mellon University. The central question of this research is how a demolished architectural object may continue to generate knowledge and meaning. The pavilion no longer physically exists. However, its disappearance renders it particularly significant for the theoretical and speculative domains of architecture and design in relation to time. This research is situated within contemporary debates concerning modernity and national identity, heritage and urban memory in Argentina during the historical processes of nation-state formation and international projection at the end of the 19th century. It reveals how architecture might materialize visions of the future whilst exposing tensions between representation and reality. The Argentine Pavilion participated in the 1889 Paris Universal Exposition. The international event was a space of cultural, technological, and symbolic transfer, in which architecture became a medium through which nations materialize narratives of civilization, economic development, and technological progress. The exposition was organized by France to commemorate the centenary of the French Revolution and to celebrate France's prestige as cultural power. The pavilion was Argentina's official contribution to the exposition. The project was commissioned by the Argentine government in France. The Argentine Commission awarded the project to Albert Ballou, architect and chief of the Department of Historical Monuments in Algeria, author of numerous palaces, pavilions, and heritage restoration projects. Ballou's challenge was to design a building capable of being dismantled and transported to Buenos Aires. He proposed a structure composed of iron and glass in an eclectic French style inspired by Crystal Palace by Joseph Paxton. The theoretical and methodological framework is based on the 6 pillars of future studies developed by Inayatullah, which enable the analysis of how societies imagine and construct the future. An approach to the pavilion as an epistemic object following Norsetina and Reinberger, understood as a cultural artifact capable of generating meaning beyond its material existence. Transition theory following Irwin et al., and the multi-level perspective by Gales to explain long-term structural transformation through processes of systemic change. The structure of the analysis follows the 6 pillars of future thinking within which the remaining approaches are integrated. The 6 pillars are mapping, anticipation, timing, deepening, creating alternatives, and transformation. Mapping identifies the actor structures, concepts, and power relations that organize a phenomenon over time. The mapping process allows the pavilion to be understood as a socio-technical and symbolic system connecting the Argentine state, political and economic elites, the French organizers of the exposition, and international circuits of cultural legitimation. The actors articulated the pavilion as a material interface for aspirations of progress, diplomatic strategies, civilizational imaginaries, and dominant technological models. Buenos Aires emerged as the central node of this operation and as the territorial reference point of the project. The centrality privileged specific territories, whilst rendering many others invisible. The presentation of the pavilion was during a historical process marked by the construction of the nation-state, the consolidation of collective identity, and Argentina's effort to achieve legitimacy before Europe. Following the closure of the exposition, the state relocated the pavilion to Plaza San Martín, a site associated with state representation and elite culture in Buenos Aires. After several commercial uses, it functioned as the National Museum of Fine Arts for approximately 30 years. Later, in 1933, the state regarded the pavilion as an economic and urban obstacle in relation to the metropolitan restructuring of the city and therefore decided to demolish it. The pavilion, nevertheless, survived through dispersed material remains that were reused and transformed into objects of legal and heritage disputes, generating new layers of meaning over time. The level of anticipation identifies imagined and or naturalized futures that guide present decisions. In this case, anticipation was articulated through a dominant vision of modernity and progress operating as a normative state and cultural horizon. This self-images was founded upon an imported future. It relied upon spectacle, assuming that appearing modern would be sufficient for the nation to be recognized as consolidated. At this level, Inayatullah warns against notions of linear and cumulative progress, since dominant futures tend to rely upon metaphors of advancement, ascent, or linear trajectories, whilst overlooking ruptures, regressions, and conflicts. The pavilion, therefore, exposes the tension between projected images and structural reality. Timing analyzes the changes, windows of opportunity, and points structuring the trajectory of a system over time. In this case, it reveals discontinuities in the role of the Argentine state in relation to the pavilion. 1. It concentrated aspirations incubated during the post-May Revolution period. 2. It became into the modern imaginary of progress as a political and cultural project under the liberal elitist model of nationhood. 3. It came to be regarded as an old object during metropolitan urban reforms. 4. With the crisis of the liberal model, it became an uncomfortable object because of the incoherence between illusion and the material conditions of the country. With the demolition of the pavilion emerged the paradox of the city without a pavilion, extending to the idea of the nationhood itself. Buenos Aires had been conceived as the modern capital of South America, yet Argentina proved incapable of sustaining the modern future it had projected. The final phase resurfaces in 2014, when fragments of the pavilion's structures appeared for sale on the online platform Mercado Libre, outside official state and heritage circuits. This episode reintroduced the pavilion into the public sphere as a symptom of loss. Deepening analysis 4 dimensions: litany, social and structural causes, worldview, and myth metaphor. The litany describes the naturalization of dominant narratives, in which the pavilion formed part of the discourse of late 19th century universal expositions, where Argentina was expected to demonstrate its departure from notions of barbarism, compete for positioning within international markets, and present itself as an opulent and prosperous nation. The social and structural causes underpinning the litany reveal how the pavilion materialized the symbolic matrix sustaining the conflict between civilization and barbarism, and between center and periphery, where modernity was presented as the opposite of backwardness. Vernacular architectures, alternative cultural identities, and other memories were excluded from the official narrative. These absences were not marginal, but rather constitutive of the dominant worldview itself. At the level of worldview, the pavilion's architecture operated as a scenographic projection of the desired identity. It was crowned by a sculptural ensemble by Hughes, articulating the three pillars of the Argentine economy. At the end of the 19th century, the female figure represented the Argentine Republic. The bull represented livestock production, the sheep wool production, and the male figures represented agriculture, industrial development, and technological process. This iconography made visible the systems of reality production within the pavilion. From the perspective of transition theory, the pavilion was a temporary exhibition artifact, a migratory building, and later a permanent cultural institution within the city. Although it became integrated into public space and emerged as a landmark within the urban landscape, it failed to generate processes of learning, adaptation, or scaling within the urban regime. These dimensions open a critical reflection upon the relationship between image and system, between image and memory, urban policy and heritage politics. At the level of myth and metaphor, the pavilion embodied the myth of a young nation destined for greatness. However, it eventually became a material and later absent symptom of an imagined future. Its disappearance reinforces its critical value as an object of historical reflection. The level of creating alternatives seeks to generate possible alternative futures capable of challenging the dominant future, rather than merely proposing utopian scenarios of abstract imaginaries. At this level, historical trajectories are understood not as inevitable, but as the result of specific political, institutional, cultural, and project-based decisions. Scenarios of continuity, heritage relocation, reprogramming, or partial reconstruction of the pavilion's fragments did not become possible because of 1. The absence of heritage protection and conservation policies throughout much of the 20th century. 2. The strategy of erasing the past in order to legitimize the new. And 3. The persistence of its fragments, which continues to sustain controversy. Consequently, any serious alternative became conflictive, since dominant regimes tend to eliminate niches that challenge stability or embody failed futures. The level of transformation addresses the reconfiguration of the cultural, institutional, and epistemological frameworks sustaining the dominant future. Here, the analysis moves towards a theory of change that intervenes in the systems producing the present, thereby enabling a new horizon of meaning. For this reason, the pavilions acquires pedagogical and methodological value in relation to imaginaries of the future, whilst simultaneously exposing their limitations. The case of the pavilions remains highly relevant today. It reopens the debate concerning architectural identity and the relationship between architecture, representation, and the future. This perspective allows the pavilion to be reinterpreted not as a symptom of failure, but as a historical warning capable of becoming a critical resource for analyzing and informing other contemporary transitions. At the urban level, Buenos Aires continues to experience tensions between renewal, property, speculation, demolition, and heritage preservation. This demands an understanding of the city as an urban system in transition. The pavilion emerges as a key artifact for understanding architecture as a mediator between project, identity, and imagined futures. It enables a critical reflection upon the notions of heritage, ruin, and absences within the contemporary city.